Hello everyone, welcome back to Jolly Molly TV. Today we're going to work on block 6 of Kimberbell's Main Street Celebration bench pillow / wall hanging project. Look how much you guys have done so far, isn't this amazing? Alright, so let's just get started. Let's go over to the machine and we're going to be working on the general store block today. So let's get started. Okay, we're at the machine. We're going to load the design. Click Embroidery. Click your flash drive. We're going to go to the Main Street folder. Then we're going to go to quilting because we need to load the quilting backgrounds. Then I'm going to select my 8x10, which is the standard size that I've been doing for these blocks. There was a good tip on Facebook regarding loading a smaller size depending on your finished size of the block. Then you won't lose any of the designs. That's an awesome idea. Thank you so much for those who gave the comments and tips. That works, but you can also still use the 8x10. The challenge that we're going to have is we're going to cut off a little bit of the design, but it won't be that much, so it will still work. So I'm going to continue to use the 8x10, and I'll show you when we trim it up, the effect and how much we're going to lose. We won't lose that much. It'll still look awesome, but you could do it either way. Okay, so now we're going to click set because I don't need to do anything to it. And it's brought that in. Now we're going to add, go to the flash drive, go back to Main Street, and now we're looking for the cute general store pattern, and there it is. So let's click on that. Isn't that cute? Brought it in. Now that's all we have to do. We don't have to do anything to it, so we'll click set. It's brought it up. We're good to go. We click Embroidery, and we are ready to stitch. Okay, so now we're going to put a piece of poly no-show mesh stabilizer into your hoop. I'm using my 9.5 by 14 hoop because that fits the size of my design. So I'm going to go ahead and do the next steps, which is going to be the placement line for the batting. I'm going to put down the batting. I'm going to secure the batting. Then I'm going to do the placement stitch for the background fabric. Put that fabric down and then secure it. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward through these and I'll meet you back here. If you do need to see these steps, go ahead and look at weeks 1, 2, and 3, the first part of the video, and I walk through this. I'm going to now assume that you guys have seen this or can refer to those other videos. So the next thing you see will be ready for the background quilting. Be right back. Okay, now for my favorite part, we're going to stitch out the quilting background, and I'm using the variegated thread, red, white, and blue. Let's go. And just like that, the background quilting is done. So let me go to the dream. The next two steps we're going to be skipping. This next one here is the full down for the blue fabric, which we've already done. So we're going to skip that. And then the next one is the tack down for the blue fabric, also done. So we'll skip that. Now we're going to stitch the foundation of the general store. So let's stitch out the placement line for the foundation of the general store. Isn't this exciting? I realize we only have 2 blocks to go. Okay, the placement line is stitched, and I've got my white fabric that I used before. So let's go ahead and put it down right side up, covering that placement line. Oops. Alright, so I double check, make sure I'm completely covered. Okay, so we've got that in place, white thread on top, and let's stitch that down. There we go. Let's take this over to the table and let's trim away this excess fabric. Okay, we've got that back on the machine. Now it's going to stitch the building placement line. And I'm going to do my building in a white glitter fabric. So I'm going to leave the white thread up in the top. That color will match perfectly. I think this general store is just going to look so pretty with a slightly glitter paint job. This is just the fun part. You can put whatever kind of fabric you want, decorate it however you want. Just love it. Alright, so I'm going to line up the fabric right side up. So in my case, the glitter facing up. And make sure that I'm covered on the point. I want to raise it a little more. And double check, point, and let's stitch this down. Pretty. Let's take this over to the table and cut away the excess fabric. So now the next step is the roof placement line. Now since I'm doing my roof in a gold fairy frost, I'm going to put gold thread up on the top, and then I can use that for both this step and the next. So let's stitch out the roof placement line. Okay, you know what the next step is. We're going to just lay down the gold fabric, making sure that we cover everything. There's the bottom, and there's the top. And now we're going to stitch down the roof. Next step, we're going to take this over to the table and we're going to cut out the excess fabric from around this bottom roof section and from around the top. I forgot to mention earlier, and I apologize, we're on page 20 of the instruction book. Page 20. Alright, we got the roof all in place, and now we're going to work on the door. So the first thing it wants to do now is to stitch the door placement line, and then it's going to stitch the door tack down line. And since I'm doing a red door, I've put red thread in the machine. So let's stitch the placement line. Fairly easy enough. And now we're going to put the red door in place. Make sure you cover that placement line. You've got plenty on the top, plenty on the sides, and the bottom. And let's tack that down. And now we have a red door. Okay, does anybody know what we're going to do now? You got it. We're going to take this over to the table and we're going to trim away that excess red fabric. And we're moving right along. How's everybody doing? By the way, if you have any suggestions or anything you'd like to see, please just leave me a comment in on the YouTube comments below. That way I can kind of get some feedback from you guys as to what you like, what you don't like, things you might like to see. Okay? So the next step is we're going to stitch the placement line for the windows. Since my windows are going to be in ivory, I've put ivory thread up on the top of the machine for the placement stitch and also for the next step, which will be the windows tack down. So let's do the placement stitch. So go ahead and get your fabric that you've chosen for the windows, and we're just going to line them up. Double check that you've covered all sides. There we go. And in the same thread, we're going to go ahead and stitch the windows. Now, does everybody know what step comes next? You got it right. Let's take this over to the table and trim away that excess fabric from around the windows. We are back at the machine. Windows are all trimmed up, and now we're going to stitch the siding details on the building. So they recommend like a dark gray, but I, in the previous block, did a silver. So I want to keep with the theme on this, and I think the silver will look good with the silver glitter on the background fabric. So I put a silver thread up on top, and I'm going to stitch out the siding details on the building. Isn't that cool? There's a little stray thread that we're going to cut here. There we go. You know, it's kind of like fascinating to watch a building be constructed. And this is our version of constructing a building. Watching it come to life as we put piece by piece, thread by thread down. I think it's so much fun. Okay, so let's go ahead with the next step. I'm going to switch to gold because it's going to do a window satin outline, and I definitely want my windows to be outlined in the gold. So let's put gold thread in the top of the machine, and we'll be right back. Okay, let's sit back and relax and watch it stitch out these window outlines. Doesn't that look amazing? Woohoo, I love this. Okay, so the bottom windows are done, but now the top three windows, you see it's missing something on the bottom of the ledge? Because now we need to stitch out the ledge detail. So it wants us to put in a corresponding gray, so I'm going to go back to my silver, thread up on top, and stitch out the window ledge details. Looking good. Okay, the next step, we get to get out our pretty little Sweet as Candy mint vinyl that we used for the farmhouse block. Now we're going to use this for the general store windows. Okay, and it suggests putting down the whole piece and stitching it out at once. We could do that. That's not a problem. But what I can actually do is this part in here is going to be wasted. So I'm going to let it do this first strip because it's going to start at this one, then go to the middle, then come here, and then it's going to go down to the bottom row. So I can literally make a quick cut, move the strip up, and save a little bit of the vinyl in between. It's not a big deal, but I can maximize a little bit more out of this vinyl and save it for future blocks. Like, I think this would be cute to do this block or the fire station on a pillow. And then by saving that little bit, I would have enough to do another row of windows. So that's what I'm going to try to do. So I want to put gold thread up at the top. It shows white in the instructions, but I really don't want that type of an accent on top of my windows. I want the gold to match the gold satin stitches underneath. So I'm going to go ahead and put gold thread up on top so it matches. Okay, so I've got the gold thread back up on top, and I positioned the vinyl where I want it to be. Put the foot down, and I'm just going to kind of guide it or hold it, not really guide it, but hold it with the stylus. Yeah, I like the gold on the gold. Now I just need to hold it so it doesn't shift or get stuck under the foot if it gets near the edge, which it shouldn't. Now after it does this next window, I want to stop it. So after it finishes this, we're going to stop the machine. Get ready to stop it. Let it move to the next one. And stop. Okay, so I want to put the foot up. And now I'm just going to slide this out and just give this just a real quick little cut. Okay, see, I've just trimmed away that excess. And now I'm going to move it down here and position it just above the next set of windows, and put the foot down and stitch away. Doesn't take more than just half a minute, 30 seconds. Just stitch this out. Yay! So now let's take this over to the table and cut away the excess vinyl. This is coming together really nicely. Let's do the next step. Let's put white thread up in the top of the machine. And then we're going to stitch out the building satin outline. So white in the top And here we go. Okay, looks like we are on to the porch railing. It's recommending gold. You know, I like that because I think that would be really pretty matching the windows. So let's put gold thread or the thread of your choice up in the top and we'll stitch out the railing. Now let's add a little bit of porch light on this block. I'm going to put bright yellow thread up in the top of the machine and we're going to stitch the inside fill of the porch lights. This is a real quick stitch, just 2 little porch lights. And just like that, there's one. And 2. Okay, you know what's next? Let's put black thread up on the top of the machine so we can do the rest of the porch lights. Here we go, porch lights. Aren't those cute? I love this little attention to detail. Love it. Okay, now, are you ready? We're going to stitch the porch pillars. This is going to be easy. First thing we want to do is put white thread up at the top in your machine, and we're going to stitch the placement line. Then once doing that, you're going to dig out your white leather, okay? So white thread on the top, and get your white leather out of your embellishment pack. Okay, so let's stitch out the placement line of where these pillars are going to go. And I don't ever like leaving a loop. You see when I threaded my machine, it left a loop there. I don't like leaving that because this loop could get very easily caught around the foot of the wiper. So I just take my stylus and I just pull that loop out so it's clear. I've had enough times where it's got caught and then I broke a needle, all because of a little loop. Okay, so let's do the placement line for the columns, or pillars as they call them. So now we can take the white leather and we're going to position it so that it covers the placement line. Now what Kimberbell recommends is just place the whole piece of fabric down and then it's going to go one by one. But you know me, there's enough space between here that I can actually position this and maximize the use of this leather, because this leather is not cheap. So I've looked on the machine and I can see that it's going from this pillar, then over to this one, over to this one, and over to this one. So I am just going to take this side and I'm going to position it enough to cover that pillar. I'm going to stitch and tack this out, then I'm going to stop the machine. I'm going to cut, just quick cut around the fabric, then I'm going to position that up against the next one. So I can actually get a little bit more out, because at this point, if I did this whole thing, it would take all this leather. But if I do one by one, I'm betting I could use half the amount of leather. So that's what I'm going to give it a try. So I am just going to, with white thread on the top, position this over this column, making sure that I have it all covered. Put the foot down. Double check that I've got it covered. Oop. There we go. And we're going to stitch. There we go. Oops. Sorry about hitting that camera there. Stop the machine. Okay, now I'm going to give this just a quick trim, cut around this one so I can position it for the next one. So now I'm going to position this one, covering this next piece, making sure I got it covered. Foot down. I'm going to continue to stitch this one, and then I'm going to stop the machine. Oops. Stop. Alright, just make sure, because it got moved, we're still covered all right. Okay, get ready to stop it once it travels to the next column. Okay, stop. Okay, foot up, and we're going to trim around this one. Okay, same thing. Line it up, go over the placement stitch, double check it, making sure I got it where it needs to be. Foot down, and stitch it out. get ready to stop it. Stop. Okay, foot up. Alright, again, same thing. Take it out and trim, just a real quick trim around that. Okay, and repeat for the last one. Again, position it up. Double check. Foot down. And stitch it out. And there's a little trim of a thread I want to do before we go any further, and continue on. Okay, so now I'm going to take this over to the machine and trim this one out and do a fine trim on the other 3 columns. Isn't this turning out so cute? Alright, just as an example of how much would have been used, from here all the way over to here would have been used. Yeah, from there to there would have been used if we had done the one piece. But because it took just, another minute or 2 in between, I was able to get it literally down to where I only used this much leather. Doesn't mean a lot. Now in leather, to me, because it's a little bit more pricey, it's worth the effort. But in the fact that I can, out of the same amount of supplies, potentially get another block out of the same thing, out of the same piece, I think to me it's worth a little extra step. So just another tip on trying to make your supplies go a little further. Alright, so the next step is going to be the roofline satin stitch. Oh, I love this one. So I'm going to put gold thread in the top, and we're going to stitch that out. Okay, according to the screen, this is a 10-minute stitch out, so we will just sit back, relax, and we'll fast forward through this. Here we go. So now let's put red thread up on top so we can stitch out the red satin outline around the door. Well, that door looks almost done, but what else does a door need? Door needs a door handle. So let's put black thread up on top and stitch out this door handle. And now the door is done. But now we need some pretty accents around the door. So let's switch to like a medium green, and let's stitch the potted plants leaf detail. And now that we have leaves, we need a pot to put the leaves in. So let's get creative. They wanted gold, but I think we have a lot of gold on here, and there's another color which I love that we've put in other blocks. It's the turquoise. So I actually have turquoise pots in my own backyard, so I'm going to put turquoise pots here. So I'm going to put turquoise thread up on top, but you put whatever color thread you would like your pots to be. And put that thread up on top, and then we'll stitch this out. I am loving that. Okay, so now you get creative license again. You need to pick a color of the flower. First color is going to go on the left. Second color is going to go on the right. So we're going to stitch the left flower first. So in my circumstance, my favorite colors happen to be the pink, purple, and the turquoise. So I'm going to do a pink flower on the left and a purple flower on the right. So put whatever color thread up on the top that you want your left flower to be, and let's stitch it out. Pretty! Okay, now in the top of your machine, put the thread that you want your second flower, the one on the right, to be. And let's stitch out the flower. Oop, there's a loop. What did I say about loops? Okay, we're all right. All right, let's go. How many times I broke a needle because of a loop? That is so pretty. I just love those. Alright, the next stitch is going to be the foundation satin stitch. So I want to put silver thread back in the machine and we'll stitch that out. Alright, now we've got the door, we've got the foundation, and now we need steps to be able to go up on the porch. So we need to do a stairs placement line. So go ahead and put white thread up at the top of your machine. The next step, we're going to be doing white leather. So that's why white thread will be on the top for this placement line. Alright, here we go. Okay, so now we're going to take the piece of white leather that we used earlier for the columns, and I'm going to position this over that placement line, making sure I cover on 1/4 inch on that side, and then I'm going to go up and then over, and then double check. Alright, we're good. Alright, so let's tack down this leather using the same white thread that's in the top. Let's tack this down. Alright, that looks good. Look at that. Let's take this over to the table and trim away the excess leather. with the stairs done, you guys, we just completed the general store. Yay! Okay, now there is a sign that we're going to be stitching out separately that's going to go on this building, but that will be after we do the top of this block. That will be a separate hooping. So the building is done, and now we've got to go up and do the fireworks and the rocket up above in the sky. So now I want to put red thread in the top of your machine because we're going to stitch the rocket fuse detail. So red thread up on top. Now let's switch to white thread on top so we can stitch out the rocket spark. Okay, if you're following along in the instruction book, now we're going to do the rocket body, and I'm doing a red rocket body, so I want red thread. If you're doing a white rocket body, you probably want to put white thread for this next two steps. But since I'm doing a red body, I'm going to put red thread up on top. Okay, let's stitch out the placement line for the red glitter body. I love glitter. Really do love glitter. Okay, now that we know where the rocket goes, I'm going to lay down the piece of red glitter, making sure that I cover that stitch line. Again, double check it. Okay, looks good. Put the foot down. Hold it down and stitch it out. You know what comes next. You got it right. We're going to take this to the table and cut away the excess red glitter. Rocket body is done. Now let's do the rocket tip placement line. So I'm doing a white rocket tip, so I'm putting white thread up on top. In my machine, if you're doing a red rocket tip, you put red thread up on top. Let's stitch it out. Okay, and now we're going to put some more of this beautiful white glitter down. And let's see, let's angle it this way. Triple check. Making sure that everything is going to be covered. Put the foot down. And let's stitch down this white glitter. And you also know what the next step is. We're going to take it over to the table and trim away the excess white glitter. Looking good. Let's do the fireworks. I'm going to do all 3 steps in order here as a little fast forward process. We're going to put red thread up on top to do the red fireworks. Then I'll be switching to white thread on top to do the white fireworks. And then gold thread on top to do the gold fireworks. So let's stitch out the fireworks. We are almost there. Now the last stitch out is going to be the eyelet holes for the fairy lights. So switch to a matching blue thread up on the top of your machine and let's stitch out the eyelets. You're almost there. You did it! Look at that. Isn't that cute? I love these Kimberbell projects. I just really think that they're so adorable. And a little attention to detail is just awesome. Alright, so let's go over to the table and finish up this block. Okay, now that we're at the table, everything looks good. We don't have to trim anything up. So let's go ahead and take it out of the hoop. Alright. Okay, now all we have to do is trim away the excess no-show mesh from around the block. Doesn't have to be fancy. Just give it a quick cut around the fabric. Real quick and easy. Now there is one more part of the general store that we have to complete. We need to do the sign, which goes for the front of the general store. So we will go back to the machine and I'll walk you through how to do that sign, and then we can call this block complete. Isn't that just adorable? Okay, let's go back to the machine. Is everybody ready? We're back at the machine. So what we're going to do now is we're going to stitch out the general store sign. Now what Kimberbell is requesting us to put into our small hoop is a piece of wash away stabilizer. So use your 4x4 inch hoop, put a piece of the wash away stabilizer in there, and now we're going to load the design on the screen. Here we go. So we're going to go to Embroidery. We're going to go to the flash drive. And we're going to go to Main Street. We don't have to load any quilting designs this time because it's just a sign. So we're going to select the general store sign. Bring it right in. We don't need to do anything with it. We click Set. And we're ready to stitch, so we click Embroidery. That was fairly easy, huh? Okay, let's go back to the machine. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to stitch this placement line, which is going to tell us where we need to put the leather. So get your white leather out of your embellishment kit. Okay, now let's put black thread up at the top of the machine and let's stitch out this placement line. Also, if you want to follow along, we're on page 37 of the instructions. Now, what they're recommending is a 60 weight top thread and a 70-10 needle. Well, I don't have 60 weight top thread in black. I have it in red, but I thought, yeah, the red might not stand out that well. But I don't have it in black. So we're going to try this with just a regular 40 weight embroidery thread. And then we're going to do something different. We're going to put a topper on it. And this topper is a wash away topper. Let me kind of put up this big piece on the screen so you can see what it looks like. This is just your typical wash away topper, because what this is going to do is this is going to make sure that the stitches don't sink into the leather. So I think it'll look good with just using a regular embroidery thread as long as I use the topper. So get a piece of wash away topper. Okay, there's various brands out there. I will put a link in the description below for the Amazon vendor where I get these from. I've been working with them for years, buying stabilizer and toppers, and they have really good product. Highly recommend their products. So I will put a link in the description. So if you need some wash away topper, you'll know where to get it. So the next step is to place your embroidery leather down, covering that placement line. I'm going to make sure that I have a good 1/4 inch on the one side and I clearly cover on that side. Then I'm going to put the foot down, get my little stylus here, and we're going to stitch this down. Oop, that's okay. This is the stitch down. Okay, so that looks good. Now, this is where I want to put the topper, because I don't want the letters to sink in to the leather. I want them to be as clear as they can be. And I've seen some links on Facebook where people were having trouble with the lettering. So let's do it toppered on first. And now we're going to stitch out the lettering. Again, this is wash away, so if it gets wrinkled, that's okay because it's going to dissolve and go away. That actually looks really good. There's some jump stitches that we're going to have to trim off. Let's see if you can see that. Move the camera over. Get a little bit more light. It's a little thick on the end, but it really looks pretty clean. I'm happy with that. So I'll take this over to the table and we're going to trim everything off, and I'm going to trim out those little jump stitches, and we're going to see how it looks. But I think the topper is a winning combination there. So I'll meet you over at the machine. So now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to just trim away excess of the washer waist stabilizer. Just trim away the excess. Okay. Just trim away. All right. Actually, part of it will tear it too. So then I want to trim the leather. Trim the excess of the leather. Oops. And I know it shows it leaving a little bit of space in the instructions, but I actually prefer to have my sign a little bit neater, a little bit closer to it. But it's just personal preference. Not a problem. And actually what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take it out of the hoop. Sometimes I put the twist screw on a little too tight. And I need this. Okay. So also what I'm going to do is just trim away the excess of the washer waist stabilizer. As long as I'm doing this. Isn't that cute? That is so cute. And then trim this up. A little bit of angle at the end. There! That's cute. Now all I'd have to do is take this. Let's see if I can put it closer. You guys can still see it. Came out looking really good. All I need to do is take this and put it in a little bit of water for just a few seconds to dissolve the rest of that topper and the washer waist stabilizer on the back. And then I'm going to trim up the little jump stitches, which I won't make you sit through right there. Trim those up, and I think that sign looks really good. The topper, I think, help makes the letters stand out so they don't blur as much. So I highly recommend using a wash away topper when you do this sign. Okay, so we are looking good. We'll sew that on in the later steps of this class when we're sewing on the buttons and everything. But look at what you guys just did. Isn't that cute? All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this week, and please stay tuned to my channel. Please like and subscribe and click on the bell notifications. That way you're notified each week when I post new videos. And I hope that you stay tuned because this next week we have built our way up to the fire station. You guys can do it. Like I said, we've been working through this. You just do one step at a time. You've got this. I will see you here next week on Jolly Molly TV. Take care. Bye-bye.